General Hospital spoilers indicate that Jack Brennan's wrench could become a lethal weapon. Will Carly Spencer's recent gift foreshadow a future narrative twist? Carly presented Brennan with a unique gift beside the pool in the June 16th episode of General Hospital. Brennan was ecstatic with the wrench Carly gave him, which said, "To a jack of all trades" on it. Naturally, this was a reference to the moment in Carly's kitchen where Brennan helped fix the water, at which point he revealed his father was a plumber. Carly was surprised by Brennan's handyman skills, so she handed him this wrench as a nod. As a result, Brennan claimed that it could be the most thoughtful gift he'd ever received. It was a lovely moment for Carly and Brennan, but what if it was more than just a cute couple scene? Carly just gave over a massive wrench that could be used for purposes other than playing Mr. Fix-It. What if the wrench turns into a lethal weapon down the road? Someone could frame Brennan if they stole the wrench and used it to hit someone in the head. It had Brennan's name on it because to Carly's jack-of-all-trades personalization, so it makes logical that it was used to set him up. However, Brennan may genuinely find himself in a circumstance where he must use that wrench to extract someone. We've seen Brennan in tight places before, so he might be able to squirm out of danger with the wrench at some time. Of course, the wrench could fall into someone else's hands. Depending on the drama created by GH writers, it might still be utilized with fatal intentions. Regardless, there was a lot of attention on this massive wrench, so it's worth contemplating the possibility that it could be used for anything other than maintenance work. Carly Corinthos had experienced her fair share of chaos in Port Charles. She'd been through storms that would have broken most people. Betrayal, loss, power conflicts, and heartache. But nothing could have prepared her for the silent, almost undetectable threat that had slipped into town under the radar. Brennan, who had arrived with deliberate charm and a facade of innocent intent, turned out to be considerably more deadly than anyone could have predicted. And what had started as a simple problem was quickly ballooning into something that threatened to upend Carly's life, and maybe end another's entirely. It began with something basic. Too simple. A present. Carly got it from Brennan during a casual lunch at Kelly's. It was unexpected and appeared innocuous. A little vintage-looking wrench put on a plaque. "For your bar," Brennan remarked with a charming smile. "A small piece I found in an antique shop in Philadelphia. I thought it suited you. Strong, durable, useful." Carly had accepted it with a small laugh, finding it strange but weirdly charming. Brennan had been hanging around Port Charles for a few weeks by that point, always courteous but a little overly curious. He asked questions that he had no business asking. He seems interested in everything and everyone. He maintained his tone light and friendly, never crossing the line. Carly still had intuition, and something about him didn't feel right. She took the wrench and hid it behind the bar at Kelly's, almost forgetting about it until days later, when she mentioned it to Drew over drinks. He'd narrowed his gaze. "A wrench? That is a strange present. What type of wrench was this?" She had not even glanced closely. She dismissed it, but Drew's anxiety sowed a seed. He'd been quietly researching Brennan since Jason had raised red flags during a brief encounter. Jason didn't believe the man. His story about being a wandering retiree didn't add together. A few days later, things began to unravel. Nina, still suffering from being iced out by Michael and Willow, wandered into Kelly's for a coffee and a quiet moment. Carly was not behind the counter that day, but Jocelyn was. Nina, who was bitter and short-tempered, made a scathing remark regarding Carly's inability to stop playing hero. Jocelyn bit back, resulting in a loud argument. Nina rushed away and Jocelyn, still seething, accidentally knocked down a display near the register, which included the award Brennan had given Carly. The wrench landed on the floor with a bang and split apart at the seam. Something glinted inside the hollowed-out grip. Jocelyn leaned down and grabbed it, astonished. It was more than simply a tool. It was a hiding spot. Inside, a little flash drive was carefully implanted and enclosed in protective plastic. She did not inform Carly right away. Jocelyn took it to Dex, who she knew had the contacts and skills to assist them get to the bottom of it swiftly. They connected it to an isolated, secured laptop, and what showed up wasn't just unusual. It was risky. Blueprints. Names. Codes. Surveillance footage. The contents of the drive indicated that Brennan was not who he claimed to be. He was tied to an operative network that was somewhere between WSB and DVX. Off-grid, heavily involved in global intelligence manipulation. Some of the documents mention Port Charles specifically, with security footage stretching back weeks. In one clip, Sonny discussed a cargo with Brook. Another had a shadowed conversation between Valentine and Laura. Brennan wasn't simply curious. He'd been spying. Jocelyn and Dex promptly delivered the flash drive to Carly and Jason. Carly's face became pallid. That gift had been in her possession for days, and Brennan had planted it on purpose. Why? To hide it? Or to implicate her? Jason suspected both. Jason placed a call to Anna. When she came and looked through the drive, her countenance clouded. She recognized the format. This wasn't just a black operation. It was internal corruption with information gathered off the books. And whatever Brennan was, he was acting outside the scope of any known organization. That's when they knew he'd disappeared. No one had seen Brennan in nearly 48 hours. His motel room was vacant. The clerk stated that he had checked out early, left no forwarding address, paid in cash, and left a gratuity that seemed more like hush money. Then a body turned up. An unidentified guy was discovered in the alley behind the pier, with blunt force damage to the head. No identification, no wallet. However, the wounds matched a very specific type of tool. A tiny compact impact mark. A wrench. Anna and Dante immediately began working on the scene. They retrieved partial fingerprints from a nearby dumpster, which matched Brennan's from an earlier handshake with Robert Scorpio. But it was not the victim. That man was still John Doe. The autopsy showed something much more horrifying. The strike came from a one-of-a-kind instrument with a hollow handle and ridged inside that almost perfectly matched the secret compartment wrench. Brennan's gift had not simply been a hiding place. It was also a murder weapon. And now someone has died. Carly was shocked. She wasn't sure if Brennan had killed the man or if someone else had used the wrench. But in any case, she had been caught in the crossfire of something much broader than she had anticipated. She'd been used as a pawn, a transport, and possibly even a suspect. Jason suspected Brennan had left the wrench with Carly on purpose, not because he trusted her, but because he wanted someone central, someone who was not on the radar of the worldwide agencies he was avoiding. If anyone discovered the flash drive, Carly would be held accountable. Brennan had guaranteed that his fingerprints were on the gift, enough to trace it but not enough to convict. The dude was clever. And risky. Then came the unexpected twist. The autopsy findings included a toxicology panel. The victim had not just been struck with a blunt object. He'd been drugged. And the drug in his circulation was a synthetic paralytic agent, which had previously been employed in covert DVX tests, but is now forbidden in most intelligence circles. It matched something found at the base of the wrench handle. They were now dealing with a designed weapon. A paralytic dose disguised in the wrench that would be released upon impact. It was not simply a hiding spot and a bludgeoning tool. It was also a precise assassination weapon. Jason's contacts in South America mention Brennan's name in reference to previous killings. Not simply a spy. Not simply an agent. An authorized ghost operative. A close. And now he's in the wind. Carly found herself in the middle of the investigation. Anna needed to question her formally. So did Robert. They thought Carly was innocent, but the optics were horrible. The public exposure of the wrench would devastate her. Worse, she might be targeted. If Brennan's adversaries found she was in possession of the data, they would go after her. And so would his allies if they thought she had betrayed him. They needed to act quickly. Spinelli was called in again to decipher the remaining encrypted data. He discovered a connection buried deep within the drive's metadata. A single word is repeated several times. Augusta. It was unclear whether it was a name, location, or code. But then Anna remembered something from years ago. An old mission file linked to a rogue group within the WSB known as the Augusta Cell. Its agents were rumored to be retired or dead. However, Brennan's actions mirrored their methodology. Carly had another realization. She'd seen the word before. Brennan placed a notepad on the counter months ago. It had a spiral doodle on it, with the word Augusta scrawled in the bottom corner. At the time, she assumed it was simply the name of a boat or a pet. But now things were different. The team began assembling a larger puzzle. For years, the Augusta Cell had operated beneath the radar, gathering blackmail material, carrying out disappearances, and utilizing unwary citizens as carriers for sensitive materials. Brennan had most certainly launched a sleeper mission in Port Charles, possibly targeting someone with ties to the original WSB cleanup efforts. That meant Anna. Or Robert. Valentine might also be an option. And Carly? She'd just become collateral damage. Then came the shock, which altered the stakes still again. Jason was followed. He observed it one evening near the Metro Court. A shadowy figure following him with precision. He looped around alleys, lost the tail, and subsequently discovered a burner phone in his car. It only had one photograph on it. Carly. At Kelly's. Smiling. The message underneath reads, "She's next." It was a warning. Or a threat. Brennan was not done. Jason did not hesitate. Within hours, he had relocated Carly to a safe place, enlisting the help of Sonny, who insisted on getting involved. The two men put aside their differences. Their personal issues paled in contrast to what was to come. Carly's life was in risk. And Brennan was not about to go softly. The safe home was not a solution. It was a stalling technique. Brennan has always been a step ahead. And now someone was assisting him. Valentine suspected Victor's old loyalists, vestiges of the Cassadine infrastructure that had collapsed. With Victor gone, they had no leader, but someone like Brennan could easily take over. Then Drew discovered something that changed everything. One of the blueprints on the flash drive was for a long-abandoned complex south of Berlin that had formerly served as a bioweapon storage facility. It was purportedly shut down after the WSB purge of experimental programs. However, one portion of the file contained updated compound alterations, including a list of access codes used within the last 30 days. Brennan was not finished with Port Charles. Port Charles represented merely the beginning. And Carly? She'd stumbled across something global. Fatal. A pawn now holds the king's secrets. Jason made his selection. He was heading after Brennan. He told Carly to stay concealed and trust him. But Carly knew better. She was not going to be ignored in a story that began with a weapon disguised as a gift. That wrench, that lethal symbol of lying, had altered everything. It had brought the past back to the forefront. It had broken the sense of safety. And she knew one thing. If Brennan wanted a battle, he had picked the wrong town. Because Port Charles possessed a long memory. And its inhabitants did not take it easy. General Hospital spoilers for the next 2 weeks, June 23rd to July 4th, state that Portia Robinson will be envious as Curtis and Jordan Ashford have a cozy memory-filled moment by the pool. While Portia has an outburst over the week of June 23rd to 27th, Trina Robinson will be preoccupied with Kai Taylor. Kai's admission that he is accepting Drew Kane's internship offer will raise alarms for Trina. Nonetheless, Curtis will do his utmost to persuade Trina that everything will work out. If everything goes according to Curtis' plan, Jacinda might be a vital player in Drew's downfall. Drew's deception will give Nina Reeves more reason to be concerned about Willow Tate. Now that she has consented to marry him, Nina will try to convince Willow to postpone her wedding, but Willow may be determined to marry before the visitation hearing, as Drew and Martin Gray advised. According to GH teasers, Nina will eventually form an alliance with someone unexpected, so we'll see how their collaboration works. Meanwhile, Drew will receive some inside information. Drew seemed to be on the verge of discovering something significant. May he learn anything regarding the judge's bribery? Drew may believe Michael Corinthos or someone close to him paid for the custody victory, but GH fans know Jen Sidwell was responsible. Willow will have some updates for Michael at the Quartermain house. If Michael learns about the impending Quickie wedding, he may force Willow to realize she's just letting Drew abuse her again. Brook Lynn Quartermain will see something that will make her furious. Brook Lynn can easily envision herself flipping out when she sees Lulu Spencer in a warm embrace with Giovanni Gio Palmieri. As Brook Lynn continues to plot Lulu's downfall, Marco Rios will provide her with additional Brit Westbourne information. Other GH teasers indicate that Alexis Davis will have a difficult conversation with Elizabeth Baldwin. Liz assured Christina Corinthos Davis that she was willing to keep her involvement in the crash a secret, but Alexis may want assurances. Will Alexis disclose any details concerning Rick Lansing and Ava Jerome's blackmail during this confrontation? When it comes time for Daisy's baptism, Jason Morgan and Carly Spencer will reminisce about some personal memories, most likely from when Michael was her age. Unfortunately, this happy occasion could devolve into a complete nightmare. According to General Hospital spoilers, Sonny is set to see a horror show. Therefore, he may be arrested or face another attempt to kill him. During the week of June 30th to July 4th, fans will witness the consequences of Sonny's shock. The Corinthos clan may be plunged into trouble, so stay tuned for updates on the upcoming family catastrophe. On a lighter note, Emma Scorpio Drake may finally locate the owner of the dog she discovered in the park. Although Emma intended to keep the puppy and call it Outback if no one claimed it, there's a strong chance Vaughn will eventually come forward. This whole dog situation appears to be a conventional espionage ruse designed to bond with Emma and gain her trust. It could be Vaughn's ticket to joining the animal rights organization and thwarting Emma's Professor Henry Hank Dalton ambitions. Drew and Willow's wedding day may arrive. Will Willow and Drew's ceremony be finished, or might there be a surprise interruption? It is probable Nina or someone else may reveal the truth about her previous intense meetings with Drew. There may possibly be another method to derail the wedding, but we'll see how things turn out. General Hospital spoilers suggest the next 2 weeks will be full with crucial narrative developments, so don't miss out. The storm had been developing for several days. Something changed in Port Charles, an undercurrent of tension that everyone seemed to sense but couldn't quite identify. The air was laden with secrets, and Sonny Corinthos' secrets were unraveling at an uncontrollable pace. It all began with a late-night phone call. Not a crisis call from one of his trusted men, neither a threat nor a lead. Drew Kane, and the sound of his voice disturbed Sonny more than any enemy could. Drew was not asking for a favor. He was phoning with news. An inside scoop so significant that even Sonny, toughened by decades of dealing with treachery, murder and allegiance games, had to sit down to comprehend it. Drew's plans were not only perilous, but also terrifying. It wasn't about a failed shipment or a competitor making moves. It was personal. It originated in Sonny's family, and it was already in action. Drew did not convey the information gently. He was curt and tense, his remarks hurried yet accurate. "You're being set up," he informed Sonny, his tone low and resigned. "And it's coming from someone close. Too close." Sonny did not reply right away. He drew a breath and waited for the specifics. He'd heard the words before. People were constantly warning him of betrayal and hunting for opportunities. But Drew wasn't one for false alarms, and what he said next chilled Sonny's blood. Evidence. Transactions. A chat recorded between two voices, one of which belonged to an old associate Sonny believed had faded into obscurity. The other voice was difficult to identify, but the intention was clear. Frame Sonny. Ruin him. Remove him from the board. The plan was tiered. A digital paper trail had been established, linking Sonny to an off-the-books weapons sale with an international crime gang. Falsified ledgers and shell companies, perfectly designed to look legitimate and damaging enough to draw the feds in. And there was more. Someone had alerted a federal contact. The name had not yet appeared, but it was only a question of time. Sonny wasn't simply being monitored. He was being hunted. The time, however, was the most concerning aspect for him. Whoever was behind this had done it when Sonny was distracted. When Nina began to unravel, Jason returned, and Drew began pushing his weight around in unexpected ways. The chessboard had been moved, and Sonny didn't notice until it was almost too late. He hung up with Drew and sat silently. The warehouse was peaceful with his troops stationed outside, unconscious of the existential threat that was closing down on them. Sonny poured himself a drink of bourbon, shaking his hand. Not because he was terrified of returning to prison. Not because he feared losing his empire. But if the source of this betrayal was someone close to him, someone he trusted, everything he thought he knew about loyalty was false. He had to move quickly. The only way to withstand a situation like this was to plan ahead of time. That meant getting to the proof before the feds did, identifying the betrayer before they attacked again, and most importantly, safeguarding those he still loved. Donna, Avery, Michael, even Carly, despite their distance. He couldn't allow this get back to them. The first step was meeting Drew in person. They gathered in a quiet part of the Metro Court parking garage, far from surveillance and inquisitive eyes. Drew gave him a flash drive and a folder containing hard copies. "This is everything I have," Drew stated. "I did not bring this to you lightly. You should be aware of this. Sunny did not thank him. He did not provide any praise. He simply nodded, and the quiet between them spoke everything. Drew did not linger. He had his own motivations for becoming engaged, and not all of them were unselfish. He was well aware that if Sunny died, it would leave a power vacuum for others to exploit. And some of the others had already started looking into Aurora Media and other Cassadine properties. Drew was preserving the structure of Port Charles, not Sunny. And maybe, just maybe, he's trying to keep the last threads of his shattered relationship with Scout and Sam together. While Sunny worked behind the scenes to verify the facts, Brook Lynn Quartermain ended up in the wrong place at the worst possible time. She'd gone to the Q boathouse to clear her mind after another disagreement with Lois about career choices. Music had been her escape, but the weight of ELQ Blaze's halted progress, and the ongoing struggle between old family expectations and new objectives had finally taken its toll. She wasn't expecting to see two guys she didn't know enter the boathouse from the back dock, or to hear her godfather's name repeated in tones too low for normal conversation. She ducked behind a curtain to listen. The words chilled her. The men were discussing Sunny, and not in hypothetical terms. They were confirming that the files were uploaded, and that the package would be delivered to the feds by Thursday. One of them laughed and added, "Corinthos won't know what hit him." Brook Lynn's breath caught. She knew she should have slipped away quietly, phoned the cops, or at least informed Sunny. But before she could move, a squeaking floorboard revealed her whereabouts. One of the males turned abruptly. "Do you hear that?" Brook Lynn rushed from behind the curtain and attempted to flee. One of them grasped her arm. She yelled. A struggle occurred. She scratched one's face and kicked the other's knee. She managed to break herself from the turmoil and run as fast as she could back to the main home. Her hands were shaking as she came inside. Lois was the first to spot her. "What happened?" she asked, panicked. "I heard something," Brook Lynn exclaimed. "This is about Sunny. Something extremely terrible." Lois contacted Dante, who arrived within minutes. Brook Lynn described everything. The voices, the threats, and the idea that proof had been falsified. Dante listened intently, his expression hardening with each syllable. He was already grappling with a conflict between his career and his father. He was now in the midst of a situation that may either save Sunny or sink them both. With Drew's proof, Brook Lynn's account, and Spinelli's study of the digital data, a clearer picture emerged. Someone had planned the takedown for months, leveraging Sunny's weaknesses, his emotional volatility, his recent distancing from Jason and Carly, and his confidence in new associates, to set up a trap. Sunny requested favors. Brick began monitoring everyone who had remote access to Sunny's business data. Diane was briefed. Even Carly, who had previously distanced herself from Sunny's world, became engaged again. Not to protect Sunny, but to ensure Donna's safety. But things were already moving faster than they could handle. Within a few days, Sunny received a subpoena at his front door. The feds were on their way, and they were not asking kindly. Brook Lynn's testimony proved vital. She issued an official statement, and her credibility as a Quartermain lent it unexpected weight. Still, there were whispers. Many wondered if she had exaggerated, dreamt it, or had been coerced. Social media buzzed. The local news carried hazy stories about ongoing federal investigations and organized crime leads. Nevertheless, Sunny remained calm. He did not lash out. He did not run. He tightened his circle, began gathering resources, and secretly reached out to Jason, whom he hadn't spoken to in months. Jason had been observing from a distance. Since his return, he had stayed impartial, watching the changes in Port Charles with caution. But Sunny's message was plain. "They are coming for me. I need to know where you stand." Jason arrived at Sunny's warehouse late at night. There were no words exchanged for some minutes. Then Sunny handed him the flash drive that Drew had given him. Jason plugged it in, scanned the information, then nodded. "This is real." Sunny gazed at him. "I can't trust many people right now." Jason did not blink. "Then let's find out who set you up." As the investigation progressed, another twist appeared. The digital files included a password-protected server and one more clue. A payment record linked to a phony account tracked back to Valentine Cassadine's freshly purchased holding firm. When confronted, Valentine pleaded ignorance. "I don't touch anything connected to Sonny," he told me. "Too dangerous." But he did provide something else. A name. "Look into Lawrence Thorne," he said. "He worked for a Cassadine subsidiary few years ago. If anyone had the resources and determination to carry this off, it was him." Drew and Jason followed Thorne to a safe home outside Albany. By the time they arrived, he was gone. But he left a message. A terrifying message was spray-painted on the wall. "This is just the beginning." A few nights later, Sonny stood on the docks, looking out over the lake. Everything he had constructed was under threat. Not from a rival cartel or a violent coup, but from a deliberate disassembly that relied on legal pressure and digital manipulation rather than gunshots. He thought of Mike. About his father's sense of justice and what he may say now. Will he tell Sonny to fight? To retreat? Accepting that his time at the top may have come to an end. But Sonny was not wired for surrender. He would go through this not for pride but for legacy. For Donna. For Avery. For those who continued to believe in him despite their inability to understand him. Brook Lynn, meantime, refused to give up. When asked if she would testify in federal court, she responded without hesitation. "If it clears Sonny's name," she told me, "I'll do whatever it takes." And she meant it. Brook Lynn had witnessed firsthand what family meant in Port Charles. It was not simply blood. It was loyalty. It was about survival. The horror show wasn't over. But for the first time in days, Sonny experienced something he hadn't felt since the nightmare began. General Hospital spoilers hint that Michael Corinthos is sitting pretty now that Judge Eva Heron handed him full custody of the kids he had with Willow Tate. Willow was so horrified that she lost custody of Wiley Corinthos and Amelia Corinthos that she broke down in the courtroom and had to be hospitalized. But a revelation occurred in the June 19th show when it was discovered that Jen Sidwell paid off the judge for her judgment. Exactly what is going on in this situation? During the beginning of the summer, let's have a look at what might be going on in the PC world. Judge Heron was deceived by Sidwell. Sidwell's decision to bribe Judge Heron, in order to ensure that Michael was victorious, seems unexplainable. First off, Sidwell may be gathering ammunition against his mob foe Sonny Corinthos. That following day, Sidwell tried to negotiate with Sonny but was turned down. In this scenario, we can see Sidwell making Judge Heron disappear and blaming Sonny for the backdoor deal. Basically, Sidwell has the ability to threaten that Michael would lose custody of his children if Sonny does not begin collaborating with him. Will Sidwell blackmail Sonny? Think about it. If Sonny is distracted by a phony bribery case, the way for Sidwell's domination in PC just got smoother. Then again, Sidwell may plan to use Michael to convince Sonny to strike a deal for the peers. There is another alarming reason why Sidwell resorted to bribes. If he was the one behind the penthouse explosion, he could feel bad that Michael was the accidental target. In this circumstance, it may be that Sidwell believed he paid Michael back by giving him his kids. Why is Sidwell so interested in the peers? At the end of the day, Sidwell is a difficult villain. He has showed enormous devotion for his own son, Marco Rios, and may actually feel bad about what happened to Sonny's son. That would be giving the bad man a lot of credit, but everything is possible on soaps. Tell us, GH fans, why do you think Sidwell bribed a court to guarantee that Michael gained full custody of his children? Michael Corinthos had long become accustomed to traversing the dangerous emotional landscape of family, power, and history in Port Charles. But what he hadn't counted on was just how deep and dark the game might go when legal custody of his children became linked with influence from outside players. Especially someone like Grant Sidwell. A guy who was previously a peripheral figure in the convoluted web of Quartermaine Corinthos drama, was now emerging as a significant factor in the life of Michael's children, and not for any reasons Michael could easily fathom. When Sidwell abruptly entered into the conflict and seemed to throw his weight behind Michael in the legal struggle for custody, the entire town blinked. And Michael? He braced himself for collision. What people didn't comprehend was that Sidwell never did anything without an underlying motive. His newfound involvement in the family custody struggle was not founded out of goodwill or justice. It was frigid, calculated, savage, and its repercussions would soon unravel in ways that might transform the power structure of Port Charles forever.